Aloha and welcome to Galactic Heart Conversations. Today I have the honor and pleasure of sitting down with Anna B. Anna is a former pastry chef turned astrologer that specializes in channeled readings from the Akashic field. Her work is aimed at helping you remember why you chose to incarnate here at this time. Anna came to one of my sound healings and we've been friends ever since. And it's such a pleasure and honor to sit down here with her today and let her share her story of how she got into astrology and working with the Akashic field and all that good stuff. Welcome, Anna, to the podcast.
Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, so be easy on me. But one thing I wanted to say about when me and Danny met was a very beautiful moment of I saw this sound healing event on Facebook, and it was one of those intuitive pings, I like to call them. That's like, you're going to that. This person's important for you to meet. So I went, and it was one of my first friendships I made on the island. We live on the big island in Hawaii, and it was just one of those like, yes, we are always being guided, and we're always being divinely guided, and to trust your nudges, even when you're like, whatever, to just really trust them, because you never know what they'll turn into.
Right? I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Yay. Thank you for having me.
So, Anna, would you like to share how you first started with your awakening journey, what it was like for you, and yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, my awakening journey probably really happened about maybe 5 years ago. When I was, let me back up. I have been a workaholic my whole life. I worked before I was a pastry chef, I worked in all kinds of restaurant positions, and then I fell in love with pastry and did all that stuff. And I was going down the road of opening my own cafe. I had become a consultant, and I was, just working, making other people's dreams come true. And I was like, okay, but what about my dream? So I'm like, well, what is my dream? And I'm like, well, I guess to open a restaurant, even though part of me was like, nah, and I was like, well, it just seems like the thing to do. So this was all kind of brewing in me. And this was like 2019, I believe, 2018, 2019, that I wasn't quite sure if this pastry career was what I was really wanting to do. And at the same time, I was going through a very difficult relationship, which came on the back of another difficult relationship, which came kind of all meeting up at one spot of like, I don't really know if this career is for me. This really difficult relationship has really messed up my friends and family. Not them, my relationship with them. It was very severed. And I also was living in Seattle, Washington at the time, but I owned a home outside of the city, and it was falling apart. And the intuitive nudge, even before I really knew that's what it was you need to, shit's going down. This isn't you. And I was like, well, who am I? And I had no idea. I had no answer. Like, these relationships has pushed me to the point of I didn't even recognize myself, and I was so embroiled in work that I didn't know who I was outside of it. And my friends and family, I had cut them off. Like, there had been a rupture there that I got a lot of who I was from them, but they weren't there. So I just really was like, wow. Like, what do I do? Where is my life going? And I was in the late 30s, and all the stuff that kind of comes with that, and being a woman and being like, kids, this, that, like, it was just this whole thing that I was just like, start meditating. That was the thing that really started me on this awakening journey, that I was looking around in my life and it was falling apart and it was just crumbling and my heart was broken and I didn't know who I was and I didn't know what I wanted or what I even liked. And then the guidance was start meditating. So I did.
I love that.
And that's really what is the basis of my work and my life now. And it really started from that moment, I started with 5 minutes a day, and it was an anchor for me, which everything else kind of bloomed off of. Mainly I don't really want to do this old career. What about astrology? Because astrology has been something that I have always been drawn to. I've always loved, and I remember one of the first moments as I was a child reading this big book of birthdays and seeing my birthday in there, and it said some things about me, and I remember that moment feeling special, and I didn't feel special as a kid, you know what I mean? But that's a whole thing. But astrology was one of the first things I was like, oh, wow, that's me, cool. And I felt like I could see myself through the lens of astrology, where I couldn't see who I truly was through any other lens. And that's still something, to be honest, that I struggle with today, is really being authentic. Really tuning into me, tuning into what I want to say and what I feel and who I am and why I'm down here. And that is a big reason why in my astrology I focus on that, like your authenticity and how your birth chart and the planets and everything up in the heavens and the cosmos can help you figure that out, versus putting you in a box of, oh, I'm a Pisces, oh, I have this moon, you know. Sometimes people can get a little limited with that, and they don't want to, it's just another box they can put themselves in. But the avenue I really take with my astrology is like, this is like a blueprint of you, but it's not defining you. It's just helping you see your authenticity, but really you have the final word in that, you know.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So you started meditating and then dove into your astrology.
Yep.
I love that. So at what point during your journey of playing around with the astrology just for yourself did you feel the need to offer it to your community and support other people with how you see the charts and how you are able to share about what's going on in people's charts and how you're able to support them with that?
Yeah, and that's a beautiful question. And this is really where the Akashic field comes in. Because little did I know that, so let me back up. When I was a pastry chef, I never had any schooling. I just had a knowing. And of course, I had to Google the thing and try this stuff, but I just knew how to do these things. And I was like, that's weird. Where did that come from? And
Past life.
Yeah, and I started seeing the same thing with astrology. I just knew. It kind of like dropped in, and then I would say things, and I'd be like, that's weird. Where did this come from? But then, of course, you have to go do the studying and whatnot. But it was like the same kind of vibe that it was like coming through me for the people. And when I was a pastry chef, everyone was like, I can really feel the love in the places that because I was a consultant, so I would help people build their restaurants up, and people would be like, I can feel the love in here, and I can feel the love through your food. And I was starting to see, and at the time I didn't really think anything of it, but I was starting to see the same thing come in with astrology, where people, I would say these things and it would really touch people, or it would resonate with them, and it was coming through me versus me overly thinking. And actually, when I start overly thinking is when I get in when I get in the way of the information that needs to come through, you know. And I think that's something that someone who is intuitive or empathic, that we feel a lot. I know Danny does the same. That it's this kind of like coming back to our inner authenticity and what's really coming through our channels, and filtering out a lot of the distortion that we can pick up from others. So then these messages are more on point and easy to understand for the people. I don't know if that answered the question. Sometimes I can kind of just go off on a tangent, but I think it
The question was how you started from just playing around with the astrology for yourself to then starting to offer it to other people.
I did it a lot for free. I did a lot for free, and I would ask to see my friends' birth charts because I was like, well, I actually also got hooked up to this service. It's called Serious Joy. And it's this astrology service that the guy, his name's Christopher Witecki, really concentrates on the degrees. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't really hear too much about the degrees. And he has this whole channeled thing about what it's with numerology and sacred geometry and kind of like what the different degrees mean and what planets are the ruling planets of the numbers and kind of this whole thing. So I actually got into that to help me because during my awakening journey, I have progressively become more and more sensitive.
Right, like, as you elevate your frequency.
And this is something that I think currently in this moment I am traversing a lot is like, wow, I still have some knots or some judgments towards myself about being so sensitive. And I have to release them and really honor my sensitivities. And that means saying no to people more. Right. And that also means really like making time for my practices like the meditation and getting up earlier if I have to, because as I become more sensitive, I'm starting to notice that I just have to be more kind and caring with myself and also know that not everyone is going to understand.
Right.
You know,
we're not for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can't take that honor or not do my practices or not honor my sensitivities.
Right.
You know, which is something that is still difficult for me. But I think right now, as we're going through this basically ascension process, whatever word you want to use, I hear the new earth, the 5D, age of Aquarius. We're all becoming more sensitive, and I do think there are certain people that are leading the way to be like, it's actually a gift to be sensitive, but we have to kind of steward that gift, you know? Like, and, you know, in the past, it was not that. You know, like, it really, I guess to anyone who's listening, if you are feeling more sensitive, I want you to know that that's a beautiful thing. And even though the world doesn't often honor sensitivities, it's changing. And the more you honor them, the more the people around you will, and the world around you will, and the people that don't will fall away. But that's something that I've really been walking with, is how sensitive I'm getting, and speaking up for myself, boundaries.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, sensitivity. And I love that you started like offering readings for free for your friends too. That's how I kind of started with my sound healing when I first got my bowls, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to share this with everybody. It's like, who wants them? And it's like run around my friends, and I'm like, let me do some sound healing for you. And yeah,
I think that offering things for free is a great way to practice your gifts, because there is a certain amount of practice that you need to feel embodied in what you're doing, to trust yourself. And seeing and doing the free readings really helped me trust myself, because I remember I did 8 of these free readings, and they were readings from the Akashic field before I even knew I was in there. I was like, wow, I can see where your soul is, like I could feel the colors or the thing or why you came down here. And I remember I did 8 of those readings, and every single person, and they were free, and they were like hour-long readings. I went into the gene keys. I went into all this stuff. But every single person was like, thank you. That really resonated. And that made me be like, oh, I'm not just like making shit up and talking crazy, you know? Because I do feel like if you're connected to the Akashic field, or if you're intuitive or any of this stuff, you know, you go through this period of like, am I crazy? Where's this coming from? Right. You know? And I think that learning to trust that is amazing. And it does take you having to put yourself out there in a way of like, hey, can like I do this sound healing on you, or hey, can I do a reading on you? And it's just like part of it, but it really boosts your confidence.
I love that.
Yeah,
Totally. Practice your gifts. The more we play with what we're offering, or like just in general what we enjoy doing, the better we get. There's
Absolutely.
no perfect, but we'll just like get better and better and understand more of what we're doing and how we're doing it and all that.
And I think you touched on something so important, is what we love and what feels fun to us and what feels good to us, because that is very much connected with your gifts. And everyone has gifts, and everyone has a mission, and everyone has something, I don't want to say special, but you have unique things that you've carried with you from lifetime to lifetime, and we're constantly honing them. And it really comes through what lights us up, what's fun, what makes our hearts like pitter patter, like that is your gift, you know. Like, I think that we can get really up in our heads and mental about it. I know I have. Whoa. You know, and coming back down into the body and being like, well, what do you love about these readings? What lights you up? What feels fun to you? That's when the message really comes through for the person.
Right.
So I think that's a really important piece that you touched on. So if anyone's listening and they're like, I don't know my gift, like, just what do you love doing? What do you like? Like, what lights you up? Start
what
there.
What sets your soul on fire?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Start there, and you'll be guided
I love
to
that.
the next steps.
Right. Beautiful. So you mentioned the Akashic fields. You're talking about the Akashic Records. For anybody that's listening that has not heard of the Akashic Records, the Akashic field, Akashic consciousness, in your perspective, how you see that, how would you explain that to somebody that has not heard of it before?
This is a great question. One that I often assume that people know what it is. But the Akashic field to me is, I've heard it explained as, it's a library of consciousness. It holds all the thoughts, feelings, everything of everything. It's like the soul's library. And how I experience it is very much through this intuitive sense that it feels like connection with the oneness that we all come from. You know, I started accessing the field through my meditations, and just that vibration, because it's just a different consciousness, it's a different frequency that you can access. And I started to go in even before I knew I was going in, and then I started going in with a prayer from this book that I don't quite remember the name of.
How to Read the Akashic Records?
Yeah.
From Linda Howe.
Yes, that's what it was.
That's how I started too.
Yes, and that's just what it was.
Thank you, Linda Howe.
I know,
Big
and that was an
shout-outs
amazing
to getting
book.
us all started with the Akashic Records.
So when I started to be more specific about it and more channeled and more focused, I kind of have just tuned into the frequency, the feeling, and anchoring it through my body, because as a highly sensitive person, intuitive, I pick up a lot of stuff from the field. And I was like, is this the records? Is it not? And I found for me that when I just really anchor into that frequency through my body, I can start to feel things and know things.
So that's how you receive the messages from the other side, through feeling and knowing?
Yep. And another one that is almost too easy, I have quotation marks here, is through sound. It's through clairaudience.
Oh, okay.
And
like, do you hear voices?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is one that's probably my main one, because it's so easy and natural for me that I forget about it. But it is, because that I would start to ask questions. I would start to ask my angels or, you know, my guides, and I would hear voices back, not from like my ears, but more from like my crown,
headspace.
my
Yeah.
headspace.
Yeah.
And that's one that I always can count on, and I always am like, is this for my highest and best? I'm always like, is this for my highest and best? And it's the clairaudience that always comes through, and I always trust it. Where I will say my clairsentience, which is your feeling, sometimes can be attuning to other things more so than the clairaudience or the claircognizance. So I do feel like we all have certain ways that our intuition speaks to us, our guides, our angels, our ancestors, however you want to read this energy or pick up on it. And oftentimes the way that's so almost second nature for us is actually our intuition speaking to us, and we don't have to work at it so much. There are other ones that if you want to practice and like hone your skill set, you definitely can. But for anyone who's listening who's like, how does my intuition speak to me? Like, what comes so natural to you?
Right.
And honestly, I think a lot of people think that clairaudience or the one that you can hear, I think, and I've heard people say this, that they think it's like your inner critic, they think it's a different voice, or they think it's just a voice in your head. You're like, whatever.
So how do you distinguish between your clairaudience coming through or your ego coming through?
This is a great question. This is a great question because you know the ego is like, how I distinguish now is through the intensity of the voice. If it's an immediate, you need to do this, like there's a urgency, that's my ego. Also, if the voice is wanting me to stay in my comfort zone, not really go out there and do that thing. So say I got a intuitive hit to go somewhere that I wasn't really planning on going, or talk to someone I wasn't really, it's out of my comfort zone. That is more the clairaudience being like, hey, this. And if there's a sense of urgency and a sense of fear and a sense of stay in this box, that's normally my ego. And how I kind of deal with that is I just kind of talk to it. I'm like, hey, like, what are we scared of? Like, what's going on here? And I don't force myself to do anything because I know that, like, this clairaudience is coming from my higher power, and it will, I don't want to say it will happen, but I truly believe that we are really divinely guided and protected, and these things will happen. And sometimes the intuitive hit is coming, so then my ego can come in with the stories that stop me. Because I found that the stories that stop me from one thing are the stories that stop me from many things, and for me it comes down to, like, people will be mean to you, people will want to kill you. That's from a past life.
Right. Keeping us safe and protected is what the ego is here to do, really. But it doesn't need to do that in a sense how it used to need to do that. Like, there's not the dangers anymore that we used to have in the world, now in this modern world that we live in.
Exactly.
So, but the ego is still coming in with that kind of protection.
Yeah, it's coming in with, like, where back in the day we're like chasing bears or getting eaten by lions or whatever it is, and it's like, that's dangerous, like, that's unfamiliar, like, you're gonna die. And honestly, I think that the ego knows how to get you to stop doing something. So it will say,
it's trying to keep you small and quote unquote safe in your safety comfort zone. But that's not where the magic happens.
No,
right?
It's not. It's like we have to step out and show our ego, like, hey, we're still safe.
Right.
So that's another thing I really take a moment to do whenever I do step out of my comfort zone and doing something. I really take a moment and I'm like, body, ego, we're safe. We're alive. Like, let's take a moment to really anchor in, we didn't die. Because your ego just doesn't want you to die. Right. At the end of the day. Right. And that's why it says all crazy things and mean things and makes us be like, oh my goodness. It's trying to keep us alive. So.
All right. So the distinction between your higher guidance coming through and your ego is coming through is that most of the time, all of the time, your higher guidance will always lovingly encourage you and give you guidance, whereas the ego will be demanding and fear-based.
Yes.
So those are two ways of knowing what is coming through for you. And most of the time, in my experience, when you receive a message, some like divine guidance, it will come through first. And if you don't immediately respond to it in one way or another, the ego is right behind you, right behind that message, trying to talk you out of it. So make sure you listen to that. If you're only just starting with listening to your inner guidance, that first voice might be very quiet. And if it's not a voice that you hear, it could be a feeling or a vision or something. Like, so if you're not used to listening to those, it might be very quiet and very subtle as how it comes through. And the more you practice, the louder that voice will get, the louder those nudges will get. And you'll be able to more distinguish between your divine guidance and your ego trying to keep you safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, because it is quiet.
Right, exactly, yeah. But yeah, just how we were speaking, like everybody has a different way of receiving messages. There is the clairaudience where you hear, the clairvoyant where you see, then there's the knowing and the feeling. What else is there?
There's even one clairalience where you smell.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think I know a few people that affects, but
I sometimes get smells in certain situations for sure. Yeah.
And as we all get more sensitive, and we are all getting more sensitive,
right?
Like we are all releasing emotion and these heavier, dense emotions, like fear and grief. All of those emotions just are more dense. We do become more sensitive, and you will
become lighter.
Exactly. You'll tune into how your intuition, your higher self, your guide speaks to you.
I feel we all have access to all of them, but certain ones are more prominent. Is that the word? Yeah, prominent in how we receive. So you will have certain ways of that are more like louder for you to receive messages from the other side than the other ones. But I feel like we have access to all of them, and the more we clear our field, clear the density, and become lighter and lighter, the more access we have to the other ways as well, and be able to develop them if we so wish.
I absolutely agree. And one thing that I see that is kind of going out of style as we walk into the new earth, or whatever you want to call it, is that people relying on other people's intuition to guide them. And now, of course, this is a paradox, because when you really start to trust yourself, you actually do, or you're on the self-trusting journey, you're on the intuitive journey. You're like, how's my intuition speaking to me? I want to get out of my mind and into my body and really tune in. I think it's almost, you need to have someone else reflecting back, that's right, or that's whatever, or are you seeing that? Are you feeling that? Or go ahead and do that in a way. It's like spiritual counsel, but holding space for you to see how it speaks to you versus I'm going to go to a psychic reader and they're going to tell me, you know, and I do see everyone, because we all have access to these gifts. I very much believe that, and I know that some people don't believe that, but I do, and it's a skill set, and you can hone in on what feels good to you, but you can still practice the other ones. And that's really where we're being asked to go as we really enter into, I like to call the age of Aquarius, is that we are all being our own inner guru, if you will. Like the age of the guru, going and having people say, or going to other people and just taking their guidance over yours. That's kind of out. Now we're really walking into trusting yourself, and if you need guidance, going to the people that are holding space for you that can help you hone in on how to trust yourself and how to trust your intuition and how to go forward in life and how to just, I don't want to say someone's going to tell you how to be you, but in my experience, I needed that reflection of someone holding space for me to figure it out.
Right.
You know, a clear, compassionate space of like, well, what do you think? Because if you look at society, that's not really how it is. It's very much like you watch the news, you learn what you think. You go on social media, they tell you what to think. And we're shifting out of that, and we're shifting into knowing that we did come down here for a reason, and we are these powerful spiritual beings in this human experience, and we do have divine guidance always available to us, but we're still here on earth. You know, it's the marrying of the two and kind of not forgetting about all of the, how do I want to say this? Just you becoming more authentic to why you came down here and what you're meant to do, and kind of tuning out a lot of the noise that we will so often deviate our own inner knowing from. Right. You know?
Yeah.
And
totally.
like, this has been a journey that I am still on, but I do know that the more I tune into myself and be like, what are we thinking, feeling, what do we need to do? And then that's reflected back to me in maybe a TikTok video, in maybe a YouTube video. Then I'm like, yes, okay, I knew that already. I didn't have to, not that I didn't have to, but it just was like, I knew that, and tuning into my body about where did I know that? You know, where did this come from?
Right.
Has been really powerful.
I love that. So this is an invitation to you, the listener, to allow yourself to play around with how you receive your messages, to tune out everybody else that is trying to tell you how to do something, because it's so easy to get swept away with the comparison. Oh, this person receives the messages like this. This person reads the Akashic Records like this. This person reads the astrology like this. This person does sound healing like this. This is your permission slip to allow yourself to express yourself how you feel called to express yourself in this world. How do you want to share your gifts? How are you receiving your messages for you to understand them, for you to translate them for your community, for your soul tribe? So
I love that, Danny. I just feel like that is so on point. Especially give yourself permission to play. Give yourself permission to be like, oh, I don't think that was it. Well, this is it. Like, just play around with it. And again, like, what feels good to you. Like, do that more. Exactly. And if you're wrong, and it's fine.
Right. We all have our own ways of how we express ourselves, how we read energies, how we translate energies. So if you're not already doing that, or even if you already started, but you're still not fully sure on if this is quote unquote right or wrong, allow yourself to play around with it and listen to the guidance that you receive, however you receive it, and just play around with it and see what feels good for you, what like lights you up in a way that you are sharing those energies that are coming through for you to share with the world from your point of view.
It's so important. Your point of view is so needed.
Right.
Like the collective conscious. I talk about this lately a lot in my astrology. We're all part of the collective conscious. Right. We have an energetic imprint in the collective conscious. Sometimes I think people forget that and they're like, oh, it's like we're part of it. So we can change it with our authentic vibration. Your authentic vibration, who you are and how you want to share your gifts. And I just want to say, as I was listening to you, Danny, I was like, your Leo rising is coming up so strongly right now, and it's beautiful because Leo rising is all about authenticity, showing up as you, finding your way to do whatever it is you do, and not falling into the comparison trap that is, we all do.
That gets me all the time.
I know. I me too. But it was just really a beautiful, inspirational Leo rising moment you had here, because a little side note.
Divinely guided.
Yeah. Leo rising. Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is what lights up our part of the solar system, and its vitality, and it's our essence, and we wouldn't be here. So it's very guiding and beautiful and strong energy, and I do feel that from Leo risings, that they want you to step into your power. They want you to be expressive. They want you to be authentic, because they are that for themselves, and they want that for other people. So that's a beautiful part of Leo. Like, Leo is really, like, Leo in all the aspects, like, not just sun, but they really want their people to shine. It's a beautiful leadership, loving, authentic, creative energy, and I just felt that coming from you.
Oh, well, thank you. And we also love hearing sweet words of affirmations like that. So thank you very much. My Leo rising feels amazing right now.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So now that we're back to the astrology part of this conversation, I gave Anna my chart to look at, and what do you see? What would you like to share with the audience on how you read the astrological birth chart? And yeah.
So this is fun. I actually love looking at people's charts. I find them fascinating, and I find them a little look into the person, like a look, not a little look, a big look into the person. But one thing that I do focus my work around is the degrees, and honestly, when I'm doing my readings, I just open my channel and I check in with the guidance, and I'm like, what do they need to know now? That's really what I focus my readings around. What does this person need to know now to move from this ick situation, this stuck, this whatever it is that we're trying to move from, and we all have one, so I like to really be specific in that. And sometimes I'll be like, well, what's your question? And a lot of times they'll say something, and I'll pick up on an energy of the word, and then I will see it in the chart. And I find that with the degrees and the houses, those are two aspects that can really help you hone in on practical application. I'm really big into practical application. Even though my chart, I have 0 planets in Earth. 0. I have a South Node in Capricorn.
About you.
Yeah, I have this South Node in Capricorn, which to me is like, okay, well, what actually is it? What steps need to be taken? Like, what? It can't just be like, like what do we need to do to move forward? Towards our goal. And we all have a goal and a mission and things that we're doing in this lifetime. Like, I truly believe that, like, maybe I don't want to say no soul came down here to do. I actually don't want to say that. I retract that. But maybe that's their mission. I do believe that we are here on certain missions, and there's things that our soul wants to experience. So the one thing, so I took a look at Danny's chart, and the one thing that I wanted to talk about was her Pluto placement. So
Get to know all my dirty secrets now.
I know. Get your notebooks out, guys. So, I have mentioned this a few times. Age of Aquarius is coming in. Now this...
So for anybody that does not know, what is the Age of Aquarius?
Perfect. So the Age of Aquarius... Okay, so we are leaving the Age of Pisces, which was basically the age of Christianity, when that really came in, that organized religion. And not just Christianity, all those really organized religions and kind of the dogmatic belief of right and wrong, and it's supposedly being spiritual, but we all know that that's not really it. Your spiritual mission is whatever lights you up. It's whatever your heart tells you. You don't have to go into church and get that. That was more the Age of Pisces. It was coming into the spiritual, religious kind of love era, because before it was the age of Aries, which was like way back in like the days of like the dark ages, you know, where there was no love, there was no God, there was no source, there was nothing. So the age of Pisces came in, and these ages are like 3,000 years. Now I'm not 100% sure on the lengths of times, right. And honestly, there's no like, okay, now we're entering the age of Aquarius. Like, there's no like, here's the day. Some people say we're already there. Some people say that we are getting there. And for me, one of the markers of this is when Pluto moves into Aquarius for good. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for a while now. And Pluto is the final, you can call it a planet. Some people don't call it a planet, but it's the end. It's like, okay, this is a big marker of like, we're moving into something new. And this kind of goes along with a lot of other theories about just the earth and ascension and all this stuff. But to me, from an astrologer's point of view, I'm like, age of Aquarius. Okay, so Pluto into Aquarius. So what's Aquarius energy? Aquarius energy, if you know Aquariuses, they are out there. They are next level. They are unique. They march to the beat of their own drum. They are not going along with what everyone else is thinking. And but as I say that, they have this forward-thinking consciousness of doing it for humanity. They are very much humanitarians. They are very much, I got this weird download, or I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to help humanity move forward. Aquarius is also called the water bearer, not because it's a water sign, because it goes out and gets sustenance for the people and brings it back to the people. Now that can be now in ideas, in ways of being, and how we innovate healthcare, education, all of these old, outdated systems that are not serving all of humanity. They absolutely are not. And this is what we're really going to see as we walk into the age of Aquarius, is we need to serve all of humanity, not just certain countries, not just certain people with certain amount of money. That is not what the age of Aquarius is going to be. And this is going to look very different than it has before, because it is going to be humans taking responsibility for their gifts, for their authenticity, and really creating this life from their heart center, from their authenticity, from their gifts, and adding that into the collective conscious. Instead of waiting for someone else, some government structure or something to come in and save, we are individually being the water bearers, you know, and the water, the sustenance that we're bringing to the people is our unique gifts and creativity and our hearts. So that is really how things are going to change. And I know this might seem a little like woo-woo and out there, but as we walk forward, we are all realizing that we are these powerful creators. And what we're meant to be creating is things that light us up through our heart space and our authenticity and our gifts and what we feel is right. And everyone, now maybe not everyone, and this is not going to happen overnight, but as this awareness starts to grow in people is where you are going to see the shifts into personal responsibility for being you, you know? And that really comes down to like everything that we've been talking about is like not going to another person and telling and being like, well, what should I do? Or who am I? Is getting a reflection from them. Yes, maybe. But as you trust yourself more, you are the water bearer, you know, and we all are. So Aquariuses can take a breather. So they're like, sweet, we don't need to lead humanity anymore. Right. But, you know, this is a process. Right. So to say all of that, what I want to talk about in Danny's chart is her Pluto placement. Because as Pluto moves into Aquarius, Pluto is the planet of power. And power is a planet of many things. But one thing I like to talk about is that it's a place in your chart where There has been faulty power dynamics. Either you have had power over people, you have felt powerless. There's an imbalance of power, and the power is coming from the external, not the internal. So wherever Pluto is in your chart, it's asking you to call your power back to you and really protect your power. Really be like, okay, I know that this was maybe a pain point for me at one time. So I'm going to know that I'm a powerful being. I'm going to put up boundaries or whatever that looks like to you and honor this part of me because it's super powerful. And I know that a big part of us moving forward is all of us owning our power and not having to have power over someone or not having to feel powerless. It's like we're on an equal level, you know, because that's what true power is. And I think even the word power, people are like, because it's been so misused because many of us, I mean, if you look at the current society and government, it's like they have power over us and we feel powerless. And that's why, like, this age of Aquarius, where we're all owning our personal power and walking forward together, can feel like whoa, that's kind of an out there concept because it's very foreign to what we have now. Like, one of the first things I remember my mom telling me, or maybe not my mom, someone being like, no, my mom didn't say this, but people being like, your vote doesn't matter. Basically, you're powerless. It doesn't matter, whatever. And I think that's really embedded in a lot of our psyches. So
we're claiming back our power.
Exactly. We're reclaiming our power. And where Danny is reclaiming her power is in her communication because she has Pluto in the third house. The third house is your close community. It is how you communicate with them. It's your siblings. It's the people that are close to you. You know, it's the early schooling. It's communications. It's Mercury ruled. It's your mind and how you process information and how you speak. Now, Danny has Pluto at 17 degrees. 17 is a degree of very connected to source and speaking from your heart. Which
Galactic Heart Conversations.
Which is very much what this podcast is about.
I love it.
So when she tunes into her heart and when she tunes into her soul and her inner guidance, then she makes a decision of what to say. Because 17, the 1 and the 7 nets to an 8. So 1 is this heartfelt Leo ruled, sun ruled degree that your heart is really right here. The 7 is a very intuitive number. 7 equals heaven. It's your connection to the divine. It's this Pisces ruled number where it's like when your heart and your soul come together, you can then decide to communicate to your people, whatever it is, you know. And I say decide because in the astrology I follow, 8, because 1 and 7 equals 8, that's a Capricorn rule degree, a Saturn rule degree, so that's decision. So that is like your decisions and how you do things are based on your heart and your soul. And this is specifically in your communication. So, you know, just looking at her chart is like, okay, so she probably had some trouble communicating what was on her heart and her soul throughout her younger years, you know, because this third house does have a lot to do with how you first learn to communicate, those early structures. That's why it's like you communicate who you are with your siblings, with your neighbors, with your early schooling. And a lot of times that can what do I want to say? That can color how we communicate the rest of our lives because that's just really embedded in us. That like, whoa, not safe, you know? So like this is Danny's journey of pulling the power back from those external things and being like, no, you don't get to tell me what I say. You don't get to tell me what I don't say. I'm authentic and I'm showing up and I'm speaking from my heart and my soul. And even if you don't like it, I'm still going to do it because the power is really within her, you know, and she's not doing this from a like, I'm right and you're wrong. She's doing it from owning her sovereign power and being like, this is me and this is what I'm saying, you know, take it or leave it.
Right.
You know, and that's really where Pluto can give us power to do that because it is not easy to really be authentic in anything, you know. Anything that is telling us that what we once experienced, what we once experienced as maybe that didn't feel so good, that we can then do it and stand in our power and kind of be like, face the fears of when it didn't feel so great. And I think that speaking is speaking can be a lot, public speaking, speaking up, like really being like, this is my voice and this is my opinion and I'm going to stand in my power and say it in front of all the naysayers. That's one of the biggest. I'm already feeling that in my chest of like, that's scary,
Not even like a public speaking, just depending on how you grew up. You said this has a lot to do with how we grow up, the younger years, so if you had parents that never really listened to you and shut you down every time you said something, or like even in school and things like that, you kind of learn to not speak up anymore. It's like, oh well, nobody is like listening to me, nobody is like honoring what I'm saying, like my boundaries are not being honored and all these kind of things. And then obviously, like, as witches, bringing it forth from past lives where we have been murdered for speaking our truth, so it doesn't even need to be in a public setting, but just like trusting yourself that you are safe to speak your heart, to speak your truth, especially if nobody else sees it the same way that you do.
Yes. Oh my God, that is so important where we are now, because that's what we're being asked to do. Other people aren't going to get it. They're not going to see it. And the piece that you mentioned about past life and the witch wound and how it didn't go well before, that is very on point. That is so on point, and I've experienced that a lot in my life because, like we mentioned, these gifts come with us. So we have fragmented memories or energetic memories or subconscious memories of when shit went downhill before for just being ourselves. So that's why it's like, ooh, can I really share this? And I felt that with the Akashic Records a lot. Because, astrology is like you can look at the chart and then, but when you're in the records and you're really just in it, in that frequency, and, the records are connected to everything. You really, there can be a lot of fear of like, am I going to be okay? So if anyone listening has this, one thing I will say to look in your chart is your Black Moon Lilith placement. Now, Dani doesn't have that on hers, or I would tell her. But the Black Moon Lilith placement is essentially it's essentially a lot of things, but one thing that I look at it is that it is your witch wound. It is where it is where people projected their fears upon you. It's where you got run out of town. It's where you got burned at the stake, and where things didn't go well for you for just you being you, especially if you are a woman or someone that identifies as a feminine essence being, because it's very much connected to your sacred sexuality, and it's very much connected to your sacred feminine rage that all, I think, women carry, because it's just very, like, women have been treated poorly for millennia. So your Black Moon Lilith placement is somewhere in your chart that you can really reclaim or really stand in your power and another like reclamation of like, just, I am who I am. And you'll find that this is a placement that you'll be like, you'll look at the house or the sign or the degree if you know a lot about that, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a hill I will die on. Like, I will be run out of town before I succumb to that. So it's a very powerful place in your chart, but it's also a place where you can have a lot of past life fears around, and it's not always true, but you're feeling it from the past. So I always say the best way to move forward with past life fears is to take the action in this physical world and just feel the fears that are coming up. Do the thing and then feel the fears, and then you will release those fears, and you will again show your body that it's safe to do the thing, to be you.
Right. And know that in this life we are safe to speak our truth.
We are.
Even if we have the naysayers and people shutting us down, like there's not that fear of, oh, I'm going to get like burned at the stake for saying this.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. You know, those times are done, so we're safe to speak. So please, everybody, speak your truth, speak from your heart, and don't listen to the naysayers. And just
that's really
be
on
you.
point. Don't listen to the people that are poo-pooing your authenticity.
Right. Those are not your people.
No. And you know what? Those people will probably look at you someday after you don't listen to them, and they'll be inspired by you.
Right.
You know? And not that, like, not that that's, like, the goal, but a lot of times those naysayers are naysaying you because they see you shining your light, and they see you standing in your
scared
authenticity.
of doing it themselves.
And they're like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? So don't let them stop you. And if anything, just keep shining your light, because like there are people that have to go first in this new authentic era. And if you're listening, you're probably one of them. You know? So really like check your Pluto placement in your birth chart and reclaim that power, you know? Have your own personal power reclamation.
Personal power reclamation. I love that. So what is your favorite way of offering guidance with the astrology via the Akashic Records?
I would say that the things I really like to do are, one, I really like looking at the transiting astrology and how it's affecting your natal chart. And really holds a lot of keys about what your soul is wanting to expand into. The ick thing that you're moving past. And a transit reading is a reading when you look at the current astrology, like the planets in the sky, and how they are interacting or communicating with your natal planets. And it can really give you some specific ways that, oh, you're feeling this, that, and the other. Well, then you can do this, that, and the other to move through it. And I find that that is really helpful to people. And that's just a reading that I do. But my most favorite thing that I do in my business is the solar return readings, because it's that, but expanded out the whole year. And they're magical, because when I do them, so let me back up. Solar return reading is a reading that you get on your birthday. So it's when this transiting sun, which means the sun in the sky now, comes back to the exact degree of when you were born. And that's not actually always on your birthday. It could be around it. But I find that this chart holds the themes that you are going to be asked to expand into this year. Basically, what's alive for you this year? What's coming up? And I find it to be one of the most accurate ways of getting a big picture view. And an example I like to use is that you're getting married. Okay, the solar return chart is you're getting married. The transiting astrology is the how, is the details. It's the where am I getting married? What's the dress going to look like? It's the little details that are all adding up to the big picture thing. And if you don't want to use the you're getting married thing, you're buying a house. This year you're going to buy a house. Okay, where? What are the countertops going to be? All the little things, that's the transiting astrology, is how you can walk through those, but you know where you're going in this big picture view. And when I do solar return readings for clients, that I really come away with such an awe and such a, wow, we are guided and everything is making sense. And you start to really see the patterns of the planets and what they're asking you to look at, or what they're showing you or exposing to you. And you see why, because a solar return reading is a whole year. So I can see, okay, maybe in Gemini season, you're being asked to speak your truth to your beloved or something. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But then you get to, say, Sagittarius season, and it's like, well, you were being asked to speak your truth more, because in Sagittarius season, it looks like you are going to be moving and getting a new job or something like that. So it's those types of things that it's like, wow, all of this stuff is helping us. It's moving us forward. It's an external reflection of the energies we have inside of us. And when I see this big chart or this big reading pushed out over a whole year, it's like a little tiny sneak peek into your whole divine plan, your whole mission down here, and how it's unfolding. And to me, that helps me boost my faith that everything is happening as it should, and we have this mission and all these things we talked about. Because let me tell you, I'm not always like, I get scared and I doubt, and I'm like, is this the right thing to be doing? And I do all this stuff. And when I can really anchor into my faith that it's all happening for a reason, and we are divinely guided, and we don't have to worry, and this stuff is moving us forward, even if it can be uncomfortable. Shit can be uncomfortable. Right. So when I see these solar return readings for clients, I'm like, we're absolutely guided.
I love that.
Yeah, and it just really anchors in a deeper level of faith in me. And like, that's why I like doing them for people, because it also does the same for them, but it does the same for me. So it's a very what's the word? It's a very like give and take reading. We both get something out of it, and
I love that.
And that's why I love doing them.
So if you're looking for a birthday present for yourself, go find Anna for a solar return reading. And you'll get like a little guidance for the next year of what to look out for and how to best show up as your authentic self.
Yes.
So how does one book a reading with you? Where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me I mostly hang out on my Instagram, and that is Anna B Astrology, and the B is spelled like a B, B-E-E.
Like bzz.
I also have TikTok, same, Anna B Astrology. And if you are into Telegram, I have maybe not daily, I have a broadcast that I update a few times a week about what the planets are asking us to expand into, what the planets are telling us or showing us or inviting us into.
Love that.
The next layer of ourselves, our evolution, our expansion. And that is also Anna B Astrology Updates on Telegram. And I have a website as well. I do.
What's the link to your website?
The link to the website is, I believe, www.theannabicknellofficial.
All right.
I haven't changed it yet, but that's where I am.
If that was a little bit too fast for y'all, I'll make sure to write all the links and everything down into the description so you can find Anna to book your reading with her, join her Telegram group, go find her on Instagram for astrology updates and information if astrology piques your interest and you would like to learn more about yourself, more about how to read the stars, and all the other things that you resonated with in this Galactic Heart Conversation with my dear sister Anna B Astrology. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for supporting me.
Of course, thank you for supporting me.
Being a wonderful friend.
Aw, same.
I feel honored to be on your podcast.
Aw, thank you. I'm honored to have you.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed this episode and you resonated with the messages that were coming through us today, I invite you to go subscribe to the podcast. Go find Anna on her social medias. Connect with me on Instagram if you would like to chat about this episode. I will be posting it on Instagram as you're listening to this episode. It's probably already on my Instagram. You can find me at hi.vibe.magic on Instagram. I look forward to hearing from you there. Until the next episode, hui ho.